word can be heard in an election, or they can properly be represented in an election. But what happened to us? What happened in the 8 years when Barack Obama was elected and to his end of his term? So that's why I got this understanding of national debt. Okay, the national debt every year is roughly around the revenue that comes into the national coffer is roughly around $4.9 trillion. So $4.9 trillion times 8, you do the math. So we talking about roughly between 4.5 and 4.9 trillion dollars. That's with a T. That's the national budget. Why I say that? Anybody who's elected as president will control the national budget. They will allot the funds to be approved by Congress. So we got 4.5 to 4.9 trillion dollars times 8. We talking about over $30 trillion President Barack Obama allocated through the budget in the 8 years he was in office. $30 trillion with a T. Now how much of the black community seen any of that funding? Now, us as black people, please understand, we 13% of the population. So the butt of that funding don't come from us. We not the majority of that funding. If you put 13% into $4 trillion, that's not the majority. That's not nowhere near the majority. But 13% of $4 trillion ain't no chump change either, okay? So that money, the 13% represent black people interests in the pot, okay? So when Barack Obama went to the White House, he was supposed to, at the minimum, represent our interests, just our 12, 13% in the national budget. We wasn't asking for a lion's share. We was just asking for a fair share. How many contracts was increased on a national level during his 8 years? Not a lot. Now let's take back the contracts, because we know that wasn't increased. Federal funding that was allotted from his office to our communities. Average, it comes down through HUD and through the various different entities that naturally flows directly down to the local government. But during his administration, it was a few more funds added to the coffer to come to our community. One, hardest hit funds. Those funds were supposed to help people who suffered from mortgage crises. People know what happened during the recession. People know what happened with all the homes that was lost. And as my brother always put it, when America catch a cold, black people catch pneumonia. So if we was in a recession and people was losing their homes, people in the black communities was losing their homes 10 times more. So it was an extra set of funding earmarked to them communities called HHF, hardest hit funds. Those funds were supposed to, as I just said, help people who were struggling with their mortgage, struggling with their taxes, and struggling with the various different things. It was a clause in those funds that stated that your funds can also be used for demolition. That clause became the law. It was more demolition than what they actually created the hardest hit funds for, and that was to help people who were suffering with their mortgages, suffering behind in property taxes, fear of losing their homes. So when we talk about being represented by Barack Obama and him speaking on behalf of black people, he have no place to come down here and to tell us how to vote. We voted for him in large numbers. The first vote I ever cast in my life was to Barack Obama for president. That was the first vote I ever cast. You know what? This is going to be my second time voting for president this year. I voted already in February. This is going to be my third time coming up for president my whole life. First time was Barack Obama. I vote locally because that's where my emphasis is on, local. I understand as black people, we don't control the national election. I don't even understand why is so much interest placed on us. Now, I know our vote means something, but I'm asking why the interest ain't placed on the white vote. That's the biggest voting block. What we losing here? What we missing here with this picture? You understand what I'm saying? So when we talk about Barack Obama, what I propose to black people is that we do not let him have a good name in our history. So I'm going to say this. The second president that I voted for in my life was Trump. Okay, and that was in February of this year. The third time I'm going to vote for a president going to be in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be Trump. So the first time I voted for Barack Obama. I'd seen people crying at the polls. I'm talking about with the kids and everything. It was an emotional time for us to not be represented. All the HUD funding could have just easily been regulated. He didn't have to go to Congress, black people. He didn't have to go back to Congress and get an extra bill passed for funding to come to our communities. All he had to do is regulate the funding and make sure the laws was adhered to, and we could have been, if I want to say that one more time, if he would have made sure just the laws was adhered to, our communities could have benefited from the funds that already trickles down to our community, from the federal government to our community. So I just wanted to clear that up about the representation or Barack Obama coming down here and having the nerve and the audacity to try to tell us, as men, how to vote when we voted for him and he served us no interest.
Thank you for that. I'm Malik Shelton. Thank you all for attending. I hope and pray that we all get something out of this. This is very, very important. I can't leave this meeting without mentioning about how the Democrats, they control and run every large urban center and city across this nation where you have a significant, large, or predominantly black population. And all of these cities, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Memphis, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Kansas City, East St. Louis, which is one of the most poverty-stricken urban centers in the nation. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. What all of them have in common, all of these cities and urban centers that I'm mentioning to you, they're all run by people who call themselves Democrats and who have allegiance to the Democratic Party. Look at Detroit, for example. Who runs Detroit? Democrats. You have 9 council members sitting on the Detroit City Council. Every last one of them are Democrats. The mayor, Duggan, Democrat. The police chief, Democrat. The Wayne County Sheriff, Raphael Washington, Democrat. The Wayne County Executive, Democrat. Most of the people who sit on the Wayne County Commission, Democrats. The Detroit Public School District School Board, Democrats. And then you got black folks out here talking about, we can't vote for Trump because he's going to sick the police on us. Who controls the police in the city of Detroit? Trump or the mayor and the police chief? Who controls the police departments in all these cities where you have black folks living in? Trump or these Democratic mayors and police chiefs? And so we can't allow ourselves, they get away, they assume, and they take advantage of us not knowing, of us not understanding what's going on politically. And they have the minions that they trot out, especially in the presidential election, to try to scare us. I'm speaking specifically about black people, or to black people. They scare us with racism. If you vote for Trump, the racists are going to come and get us. If you vote for Trump, we need the Democrats to protect us from racism. But they've done a marvelous job, haven't they? Racism was here against black folks long before Trump. And racism will be here in America long after Trump is long gone. So I'm going to quote some statistics. Another thing, I put up a post. Well, actually, I wasn't the initiator of the post not too long ago. I reposted something. Somebody had put up on Facebook a sign, and it said, "I wish Black lives mattered more to black people." I got attacked. Somebody jumped on my page, called me all kinds of names and sellouts, and said, "You trying to distract, you trying to deflect from the white police killing black folks, putting up something like that." I said, "Bro," you see, all people kill one another in their groups. White people kill more white people because they live around white folks. Mexicans kill Mexicans because they live around Mexicans. And Arabs kill Arabs because they live around Arabs. And so black folks kill black folks. I said, "No, but guess what? This is what you either don't understand or you leaving out intentionally. Black folks kill black folks in extraordinarily humongous, stupendous numbers." I'm going to quote some. Let's just look at Chicago. Let's look at Chicago, which ain't too far, about 270 miles from here. This is a very striking statistic. First off, the city of Chicago has a population close to 50% white folks. 29% of the population in Chicago are black folks, black Americans. And 30% of the population in Chicago is made up of Hispanics and Latinos. So the majority of people that live in Chicago are white, 50%. Guess how many white folks kill each other in Chicago per 100,000? Deaths, murders per 100,000 amongst white folks. 3 to 5 per 100,000. Guess how many black folks, who are not even the majority in Chicago, blacks kill blacks in Chicago at what rate per 100,000? 60 to 80. But with us, oh, that's good. We're not going to say anything. Let them keep killing each other. If that was happening in any other community, as me and Ramon were talking about earlier, it was an emergency. They probably shut down the whole country. We got to find out what's going on here. But with us, oh, it's no big deal. Let them kill each other. This is an epidemic that's going on right up under our noses. And I just mentioned Chicago. This is going on, these high rates. Black folks average about 40 murders, intragroup, black on black, per 100,000 across the nation. White folks are, their groups, they average about 6 or 7 per 100,000 across the nation. And so, this is an epidemic and a pandemic. This is a pandemic of epic proportions. The Democrats don't care about it. You don't care about that at all. And so we have to be very, very cognizant, because they depend on us being unaware. Because what they'll do is they'll trot out these minions that are being told, you better get out there and get the vote for us. If you want to keep getting your crumbs, you better get out there and get them people to vote Democratic. And you can scare them with racism. All you got to do is tell them, if you don't vote for the Democrats, the racist is going to get you. Let me tell you something. I'm old school. I know how to deal with racists. And I don't need no Democrats to protect me from them. And a lot of this racism is race baiting anyway, truth be told. They invent racism to manipulate us. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but they're inventing it to manipulate us.
Now, Brother Malik was talking about, now in this country, if you look up the stats, you will see that it's more white people that killed than black people. And that's because it's 6 times the population. But when you do ratio, that's how you determine numbers. That's just like I tell people. Flint, Michigan have never had more homicides than the city of Detroit. But Flint will be number 1 in homicides in the country, with averaging 40, 50 murders. And you have a city like Detroit that got 300, 400 homicides. And you have a city like Chicago with 600 homicides. But Flint has 60 homicides, and be the murder capital. Okay, that's the same as welfare. You'll hear black people say, more white people on welfare. Of course, they 5, 6 times the population. There's going to be more everything. But when you do the numbers of what he just said, the ratio is not more. So I go on to this right here. The next frame is legal term. Could you go back, please? Legal term for standing. It's a video that at the debate that Trump did with Kamala Harris. They had a debate, first debate that they had, and the question was proposed to the former president about election integrity and election fraud. And they said, it's been 60, I wish this video can show on, is it a way we can show that video? I wish we could show that clip, and it's a clipping of when they asked President Trump during that debate about 60 lawsuits that got dismissed on election fraud. For one, let me say this to y'all. It's over 330 million people in this country. So 60-something of us filed a lawsuit. I'm one of them. That is such a minute number. 60-something out of over 330 million people. So that's a small number of people that's really sending that ram up through there. So they say 60 lawsuits was filed, and Republicans and Democrat judges ruled that they didn't have no merit. Trump's response was, no, they dismissed the lawsuits because they say we didn't have standing. He said that they didn't look at the evidence. They just hit us with a standing, never looked at the evidence or anything that was going on. Now, why do I say that? My case got dismissed this week, right? It got dismissed. My case got dismissed. My election integrity case got dismissed Monday. Order signed on Monday. They dismissed my case because they say I lack standing. I want to read something to y'all. They say, to begin with, Jackson cannot show that he suffered an injury in fact that is concrete and particularized. His claim that the conspiracy resulted in the delusion of his own vote in prior election is an injury to his right to vote like all citizens who participate in the electoral process. That type of injury is so widespread that it amounts to a general grievance rather than a particularized harm. Y'all understand what they're saying? They're saying that all of us should be aggrieved and our votes was diluted. So Ramon Jackson, your injury is not unique. Not to say that we did never do this to y'all, not to say that we never diluted y'all votes, not to say we didn't do any of this. We saying to you in the court that your injury wasn't particular. Let me say this. As the former president said, they failed to look at the evidence. My injury was particular. They registered me to vote without my knowledge when I moved away. They filled out an absentee ballot application in my name without my knowledge. They did the same thing to my friend, registered him to vote without his knowledge, without his permission, put an absentee ballot in his name without his knowledge, and cast the ballot in his name 3 elections. And they told us that we couldn't identify a particular issue. Okay? So this is what we face with. So when a person tell me, why am I voting for Trump? And I sit there and he come on national TV and he say they hit him with standing and I'm a president, ex-president, and they say I don't got standing and I'm a nominee and I'm candidate in the election. And here it is, I'm a resident of Detroit, I'm an elector, I'm a shareholder. They registered me to vote unlawfully, filled out an absentee ballot in my name, everything, cast a ballot in my friend's name in 3 elections. They told us we ain't got standing to sue in court. Something wrong with this picture. We got to get a person in office that we can at least speak about this matter and address this matter.
Yes, actually, we've been down to the Detroit City Council. We've been down to the Detroit City Clerk's office. We've been down to the Election Commission office down on West Grand Boulevard, and we brought the evidence. We've talked to one journalist in particular, because I was with Ramon. We sat with him for about 2 hours, so-called journalist. We brought, and each time we never go anywhere without documentation, facts, laws that were violated, and so forth and so on. Bear trap evidence. And, you know, when we go down to these different venues, there are always Democrats staring back at us from across the table. Yes, sir. Just staring at us. And you know what they say? We tell them we have specific instances, notarized. We have witnesses. We have people who swear under penalty of perjury that they never voted in these elections, yet you have them voting. This is voter fraud. Now, when we said, well, here's the paperwork. You know what they tell us? Oh, Trump, that was debunked. Trump filed all them lawsuits. What has got to do with Trump? We're talking about voter fraud right here in the city of Detroit. We have people who've signed affidavits who swear that their votes, that they didn't vote, they were taken advantage of. There was voter fraud right here in Detroit, right under y'all's noses, and they immediately deflect to Trump. That's a tactic that they use. They can't stay on anything. They have to always go back to Trump. They're going to make Trump responsible for everything if they can. We've been to court, not just on the voter fraud. That's probably the most egregious thing that we've been to court on and filed a lawsuit on. We filed lawsuits that had the biggest municipal bond case in mainland United States history. The only place that beat us out was Puerto Rico, and that's a Commonwealth. Over $4 or $5 billion, principal and interest, municipal bonds. Ramon told the judge when he seen it that it was a setup. It was rigged. They had brought this judge in to hear the case. There wasn't even a judge that was qualified to hear this type of a case. She was in family court for 23 years, and all of a sudden she's dealing with bonds, a municipal bond case. Her first case. Ramon, he seen where the wind was blowing, and he told her to her face, how much did they pay you to vote against us, to rule against us, I mean? How much money did you accept in the bag? How much? She just stared at him. You know why? She couldn't wait to get that case over with because she knows that it was a setup. Guess who she was? She wasn't a Republican. She didn't look like Trump. I'm going to tell you, she was a Democrat. Guess who she looked like? Duggan. She could have been Duggan's sister. So what's my point? We have to stop allowing ourselves to be bamboozled when these democratic cities and states, for black folks and white folks and any other ethnicity, it is destroying the financial framework and vibrancy and the moral fiber of this country. The Democrats are leading us to total ruin. They're miseducating our children. They're ruining the morals of our children. They promote everything which is anti-principles. They want to censor everything. We got a taste of it during the pandemic, when Biden had the nerve to get on TV. They talk about, oh, we got a right to our bodies, talking about the abortions. How about your right to your body when they want to put some medicine in it or give you a so-called vaccine that you may not want to take? Remember when Biden got on TV, when he was president a few years ago during the pandemic? You know what he said? I'm losing my patience with you. Talking to the American people. Not enough of y'all are taking this vaccine. I'm losing my patience. I'm trying to be patient. I'm losing my patience with you. I said, what does that mean? You gonna try to force it on somebody? That's what the Democrats will do. That's what they will do.
I want to just end with this. That case that we fought, it was also a voter rights case too. We got one of the biggest conspiracy to violate our voter rights here in Detroit in history right now, dealing with elections and dealing with municipal bonds, dealing with public authorities, contracts with public authorities. We got one of the biggest voting rights case when it simmers to the top in U.S. history going on right here. And let me tell my Republican comrades, we need to tear Detroit apart on them voter lists. This is the mega load here. This is the mega cheating that's going on in the state. The other cities is all small. Right here is where they drive it all the way home. All we have to do is take it, come together, take them lists and tear them apart and find them voters, recruit them voters that didn't vote, that they victimized, and let's bring these people to justice. Congress legislature. The reason I got that is to explain how legislature is passed. Because we hear it's a lot of misinformation be out here, and our people is perishing because of that. So everybody is speaking, and one thing you will notice about our community is that anybody think they can talk about anything. They can be unlearned. They'll talk about the weather, science, no college degree, no nothing, no studying, no nothing. Other communities, people understand their place. You got rappers coming out talking. Charlemagne the God was on CNN today, and just to deviate what you were saying, he went to the CNN host Anderson. He say, "Y'all are showing discrimination against Kamala Harris with Trump. Negro, is you crazy? The mainstream media won't even put nothing up about Trump. It's all Kamala Harris. But you see, he created a racism in that field and saying the media ain't doing. Everywhere on my phone, on the mainstream news stations and everything, straight catering to Kamala Harris. If it wasn't for social media, Trump message would be buried, period. Mainstream media is slashing him and killing him. The guy looked at him like, what is you talking about? Ain't nobody from CNN ever said question her race. He created it. He made it up about racism, just saying you discriminate. Y'all discriminating against her because that's they fix. That's they go-to. So I come with, they ain't lying at the same. Congress and legislature, in order for a law to be enacted, as we was just talking about standing, and I got summary judgment here because summary judgment was the standing of lawsuits before standing. When they came up with the reason I put summary judgment as a slide is because for years they created summary judgment, they meaning the Congress, because this is how laws is created. It go through the chambers and it pass through the president. So it ain't no president coming in, they gonna change the laws. Those are lies when they say Trump gonna come in, add the death penalty. Trump not gonna do nothing without the Congress when it comes to laws. That's how laws are enacted. It's either gonna Senate, House, President, or House, Senate, President. Whatever way you cook it. But that's how it go. I brought about summary judgment because that was created by the Congress. And for years, summary judgment is what blocked cases. Summary judgment would say, listen, get these cases out of here, rid us of meritless cases and get them out of here. And guess what they saying? So we understood that we have to have our marriage together in every way. So that people such as myself, I knew that I couldn't sue unless I had ironclad, bear trap evidence where I caught them with their hand in the cookie jar, because I know that even catching them with their hand in the cookie jar, you still won't win. So, but I knew that you gotta have them with their hand in the cookie jar so we can beat summary judgment. This is how, so now Congress came with standing. Standing is the new summary judgment. If you go back to the 90s, you rarely heard standing used. It was summary judgment, deep six in cases, deep six in cases, deep six. Americans is very, very smart. Smart Americans in every race. So we knew that we had a problem with summary judgment, that we couldn't get no justice when we filed a lawsuit. Okay? So that I say that to say they had an issue right now where they was talking about qualified immunity. Trump gonna give police who beat and do stuff to people qualified immunity is already a law enacted to shield certain, like judges already coming up under the 11th Amendment. Okay? Qualified immunity is already put into the laws. Okay? And qualified immunity is to shield unwarranted meritless lawsuits. But it's a clause in qualified immunity say if the laws was clearly established and they knew the laws was established, you can't get, and you violate them, you can't get qualified immunity. So when people say he gonna get judges qualified immunity, it's not no one-man show. Those are all lies. So I just wanted to state that.
Also, again, the fear mongering is going on with this qualified immunity and the racial baiting, because qualified immunity does not apply to police officers who commit felonies, assault, murder, or what have you, battery, violation of your constitution, any type of felony, burglary, any type of felony. It 110% does not apply. It only applies to certain civil cases. And again, as Ramon said, even in the civil case, where you try to sue a police officer personally, the qualified immunity only applies if the violation is clear. In other words, it's a clear violation. It's a clear violation of the rights, and only then does it apply. But it has nothing to do whatsoever. That's why you got these people running around here talking about Trump. If you're going to vote for Trump, Trump's going to get in there, and he's going to give the police officer carte blanche to run around and murder black people. Doesn't apply to that. That's a felony. Murder is felony last time I checked.
Say one thing real quick. For those in the audience and those who may be on the live stream, what they're describing, and before we segue into something else here, is lawfare, right? You want to maybe look that up and write that down. And it's a new type of attack that we're seeing in against the American citizen, right? Because the last time I was here before you was ignorance, right? They're counting on the average American citizen to not know the Constitution, to not know its local laws and ordinances, and to begin to make decisions, right? And then have us to say it's okay because you used legalese, right? Or used legal terminology in order to try to make a point, right? Or to protect a grievance or what we considered legal warfare against you, right? So it's legal and it's illegal, and I was going to give you a definition of it. So what is lawfare, right? Lawfare is the strategic use of legal proceedings to intimidate or hinder a political opponent, right? Or someone who could be defending or presenting a case against someone, right? So we see that, we've seen that happen in Congress, we've seen that happen at the executive level, we've seen that happen at the legislative level, and what we're starting to see even from this administration is to try to bring lawfare in, and they've actually exercised it through the judicial branch. This is why you see special appointments every time a president is elected into office. You start to see people start to move in, they start to appoint new judges, and whether, some of these judges have agendas, and they're looking to protect some of the legislators that have passed some of these laws and ordinances. So you want to look up lawfare, and understand that this is the last branch. We've even seen this administration make, which I think is absolutely crazy personally, but they want more people on the court. They want to pack the court. They want to change the Supreme Court. They want to do all these crazy things that are actually a threat to democracy. So when you hear that, you're actually hearing law. It's literally lawfare.
I want to say this real quick. For the past probably 40, 50 years, it's only roughly around 6 to 8% of the people that's black that voted Republican. Okay, so black people listening, we can't make a comparison to Trump or to any Republican elected officials. We didn't vote for them. You can't make the comparison. They have no control over your resources. And guess what? If you don't vote for somebody, they don't necessarily represent you. You didn't put them in office. So we cannot make a comparison between Trump and Obama, Trump and Biden. Because guess why? We did not vote for Biden. We did not we did not vote for Trump. So we can't make a comparison. Our only thing we have to do is compare the person that we actually voted for and did they represent us. And I say this to say that the president, whether you vote for him, do not supposed to represent everybody here. No, I don't say that. But I say this to say, how can you expect something from somebody if you don't vote for him, you hate him, you talk about him all day, but then you want to say, what did he do for black people? You didn't vote for him, you castrated him, you hung him, you threw him up, called him racist, did everything in him, served as a vehicle for misinformation. Because any group of people that can be used to spread information is going to be effective. Blacks being 48 million people, that's a lot of people to spread something, especially if you can get 10 million of them to spread something. And so we are targeted to spread information because a lot of our community, and we got to stop doing this, repeating information without confirming information. Don't repeat nothing. People that's listening, don't repeat nothing. Don't repeat nothing I say. Research everything anybody tell you. Do not repeat information that somebody tell you. Do not do that. So I just wanted to state that before we go on to this. Now, I got Social Security, Army generals, Pentagon, IRS, war. The reason I got that is because the flow of power and what we dealing with the power here must be understood. This is why you have assassination attempts, and this is why you seeing things going on. I was on the boulevard the other day, and it looked like Bel Air. Black people, y'all know what I'm talking about? Bel Air, when I'm talking about Bel Air in 1995, jumping, parking lots full of people everywhere, McDonald's parking lot full. And guess what? This was all caused by the election department in Detroit. I said, wow, you would think it was models and bottles. You would think it was Moet and jeans. These are the white party, the black party. People who don't know in the audience, these are hype black parties that happen in Detroit. That's what you seen caused by the election department. They rallying in our people, coercing them into voting because people don't understand what they voting for. Me and this brother been having conversations with people about misinformation. We having a conversation with a brother, and he sends me a draft telling me that since the 1930s, our community been overwhelming Democrat. And he's arguing with me because I'm telling him that the Democrats been misrepresenting our community. And he argued with me that ain't the truth, and then turn around and send me a draft that since 36, we've been voting for the Democrats. But this is one of their agents that come out here, and then if people ain't checking or know how to check their information, and then we dealing with a very, very lower literacy rate here in Detroit. So listen, this is what power is on the line. Social Security directors appointed by the president. Army generals, look at that. I'm talking about assistant generals, 4-star generals, 5-star generals, all the people that run the Pentagon. This is all up for grabs. This is all at stake. This is a lot of power that's up for grabs right now. So this is why you see things that you never ever seen before that's happening in our community with elections. We ain't never seen things. I talked to a couple. I said, "Hey, y'all ever wonder why they targeting y'all like this in Detroit to vote?" And he say, just me saying that to him woke him up. He say, "I was just telling my wife, man, I ain't never seen nothing like that." Because now it's coming to the top that how important our vote is. So these positions, army generals, heads of all these cabinets, heads of all these departments, this is up for grabs. One of the biggest things the Democrats fear, you know what they fear? They fear an impartial, righteous Department of Justice director. I'm telling y'all, they fear a righteous U.S. attorney. They fear that. You know, they fear appointing righteous assistant U.S. attorneys all throughout America in these congressional districts. You know why? Because there's so much corruption going on. I'm going to say this and then we'll leave. Kwame Kilpatrick was talking about Barack Obama. And he was talking about how his mother went up to Barack Obama when he said they was investigating him ever since he took office. Now, when he took office, George Bush was the president. We had a Republican president. So understand this, the Department of Justice, it was ran by a Republican. Because if you got a Republican president and you was being investigated, you were being investigated by a director which was appointed by a Republican president. So if the Department of Justice initiated an investigation on him, that was initiated by the Republican attorneys appointed by the Republican president. He say that investigation went on for years and years and years. Guess what? He didn't get charged till who came in. I would call him a monkey, but they probably say I was wrong. But he didn't get charged and convicted till Barbara McQuaid, Democrat, U.S. Attorney, Bulldog, rallied up massive young black men for RICO. I'm talking about initiated it, grinded it. I'm talking about RICO charge, 13 RICO charges, 13. And not one car, not one piece of jewelry, not $1,000. 13 RICO indictments, and altogether not $1,000. We talking about RICO. We talking about a law that was enacted to take down the mob, to confiscate large buildings or corporations that were started with illegal money. We talking about something that was started from that 10 to 13 indictments in Detroit from young black men ranging from 18 to 30, and not $1,000 out of all of them. They don't even own cars. They was living with their mother. I'm telling y'all this. And so when he say they came in and investigated him, and then when Barbara McQuaid got in, when Barack Obama came in, pointed Barbara McQuaid, curtains off, and he turned his back on them. So black people, supporters of Kwame, how y'all gonna support Barack Obama in this administration, man? And he did your boy like that. I just wanted to say that. Federal contracts, Fed grants to cities. It was Pastor Zoe was on Mildred Gaddis, and last week, I don't know if y'all heard a powerful segment. Pastor Zoe was giving it to him. They cut him off every time he come on because truth, he wait, sit in the cut, he wait on them, be patient, wait, honorable, respectable, and everything. Let them talk. As soon as he started spewing truth, they shot him. So something came up. She was reading, the host was reading something that they gave her about Trump, because we knew it was, she ain't fact checking, because you know what she said in there? She said Trump was talking about cutting funding, going to police. When Pastor Zoe came in, he said, see, the dynamics of, Pastor Zoe smooth. He said, the dynamics of the government, people got to understand. He said, the police is funded by your local mayors and city government. So how can Trump come in and stop police? She say, now she caught up and we beating her down because you shouldn't even be talking. This basic understanding and knowledge that souls to the mayors control the police. This basic knowledge that we teach. He say, man, they don't know the dynamics, so this is why this is here. Okay, I got a recent budget from Detroit, and I sent it. It's a chart. I'm going to show it when we get into the local politics. It's a chart of a breakdown of how our funding go. And it's our general fund. 44% of the general fund go to public safety, okay? It was probably about $3 million in grants that came from the federal government, because what happens is local governments can apply for grants for various different police efforts. They might say, we want more bulletproof vests, we want more sight, we want more security. But those grants is so minute, $3-4 million. We talking about a $400 million budget. So when you say stuff like this, we need to understand what it is and understand the dynamics of politics. So I just wanted to clear that up. Now, federal contracts. The reason I talk about that is because we back to Democrat presidents. 12 out of the last 16 years, what? Presidents say being what? Democrat, right? And as I just was speaking, we don't vote for Republicans. So you can't expect it for them to go in there and they don't represent you. I mean, that's just how it is, though. That's like the Republican in a Congress member in the 10th district in Michigan don't represent us in Detroit. This is how I go. The constituents in his district is who put him in office. He represent them. The people in the 13 and 14 the 12 and 13 supposedly represent him. That's just how it go. So if you don't vote people into office, they don't represent you. You can't hold the person you don't vote in accountable. You got to hold the people that you vote in accountable. Now, 12 out of 16 years, the presidency been ran by Democrats. So I got a couple things I'm going to read. Trillions of dollars in contracts coming from the federal portal, right? Office supplies, computer equipment. And these contracts I'm listing because I know that blacks are equipped to do it. I would be, right now, it ain't a lot of black companies that I would feel comfortable going to get them to build a bridge. I'm just being honest. But some companies can build bridges. But contracts, so we gotta be honest with ourselves. Electrical contract, bridge contract. Is it a lot of black companies to do that? Might not be. We understand it. But office supplies, computer equipment, printing, translation, snow removal, tree removal, delivery service, event planning, vehicle maintenance, wash, maintenance, photography, janitorial, landscaping, buildings, fencing, catering, pest control, asbestos. These are federal contracts that I know is millions of blacks can do. And we not being brung in on it. So when you talk about a president representing you, understand if they're not bringing you into a contract, and those Democrats that we voted in supposed to have, not the Republicans. Can't expect the Republican we beat up and we hate, and then he's supposed to go in there and represent you. And nobody voted for him, slander him. So them Democrats supposed to make sure that at the minimum, we getting a portion of these contracts when they go to Washington to allegedly represent us, and they not. So I just wanted to touch on that and make that point clear to people that when we asking for representation from Congress members, presidential candidates, this is what we have to be asking for. I'm going to say this and I'm going to close. Barack Obama, I'm back to him again. $30 trillion, so he gave out a lot of contracts, right? 30 trillion over the 8-year period. Okay, when he left, do you know what he said? You know, they build a library. A lot of them can build presidential libraries after they leave office. A lot of them do. That's how they get the presidential libraries from our tax dollars. He said that I want to make sure that they was building, I think, him a presidential library sometime where in Illinois or something after he left office. He said, I want to make sure blacks getting contracts. This after he left office. He said, it's a $300 million contract to build I think it was about $300 million to build his presidential library. And he said he wanted to, after 8 years, $30 trillion, now he wanted to make sure we included it in the building of his library at the end. He ain't even in office, though. Get that joker out of here, man. That joker don't speak to us. I want you, go.
And you know what? I wasn't even going to say it, but since you brought up that presidential library, you know, that library they don't even have a real estimate on how much it's going to cost when it's complete, but it's going to be almost $10 billion. And it's literally maybe less than an hour away and you can even look this up for yourself, since he's been out of office, there have been almost 10,000 people murdered in the city of Chicago. And just mere miles from where they're building a monument to glorify this man.
Good point, brother. Okay, so listen. The history of Republicans, Democrats, this is important because a lot of times people talk about a uniparty, and we got to understand it. Do anybody in here know that it was a Democrat-Republican party before it was just Democrats and Republicans? They was together for years during the Adams and Monroe years. I talk about where it split off at because blacks is at a crossroad on misinformation. Some people telling them Republicans has always been racist towards black people. That's their policies. That's their agenda. That is not true. That's not true. Frederick Douglass was one of the first nominees for the Republican president. He was one of the first ones, but we're going to get to him in this slide later. But when the Republicans started, we got to understand this, because I'm back to this. We covered this. Blacks wasn't allowed to participate in the Democratic Party until 1920s. You would get stomped if you even went to a convention meeting for a Democrat. All the way from, now Democrat, the Democrat Party as we call it now, I think was started in like 1838. So from 1838 to the 1920s, blacks couldn't even go to a meeting in the Democratic Party. The shift happened in the 30s, and the shift wasn't about blacks just loving the Democrats. The shift was about a Democrat president, which was FDR, understanding and foreseeing for the party that we'll be at this crossroad right here today. What crossroad I'm talking about? Crossroad where the Democrats solely relies on the black vote. They solely relies on the black vote. They don't have enough whites that's Democrats, so the black people coming in with the whites that's Democrats is sometimes push them to win. Oftentimes, it still don't push them to win. So they are solely relying on the black vote. And those presidents, when you talk about presidents that sign bills, those bills that they signed wasn't because they cared about black people, those Democrat presidents. It was because of pressure by civil rights leaders and people such as ourselves, pressuring them that, look, we're going to pull our voting power out. So I just wanted to make that clear for the people who spread falsehood that black or that the Republican Party have always passed laws to hit. That's totally not true. The party was created to end the expansion of slavery. First blacks was in the Republican Party. Frederick Douglass was all the way involved with communicating with Lincoln, telling Lincoln, listen, put the blacks into the war, bring them into the war to negotiate the freedom of blacks. This was power. This was what was going on. This was the communication that was going on. This the working that was going on. So that misinformation about Republicans as always now, is it Republicans that have passed things that don't benefit us? Yes. Yes. But let's spread the truth about what's going on. Both of them have done things that we don't agree with. The last 80-some years, we've been totally, for the most part, voting Democrat. So where did the shift change? And where was our loyalty at? You know, the recession that happened in the 30s was a very, very trying moment. So blacks, that was the shift. So FDR being the president and promising provisions to blacks, of course, they was going to shift. Because as we say, if it was a recession in this country, it was a cold for America, but it was pneumonia for blacks. So can you imagine what was going on with the blacks if it was a recession for everybody? We were suffering. So anything, any handout that was given to us, we was going to take it. So we can't get caught up in that shift. Hope 6, Bill Clinton, pardon gentrification. Anybody know what gentrification is? A lot of people will tell you gentrification is when white people come into the communities, build up, buy stuff where you can't afford. That's a lie. That ain't what gentrification is. Gentrification is ordained, sanctioned by your local government. But I talk about Hope 6 because Hope 6 in 1993 was a federal funding to gentrify these cities. And if you go to the next, could you hit the next? It should be, go back for a second. Okay, I wanted to show, I had some photos of me and the Jordan Down Project. Okay, the Hope 6 was federal funding to tear up all the projects in the country, okay? So this is what hit the Cabrini Green. This is what hit Brewster projects. This is what took out the Magnolia Project, the Callio projects, all the projects in the country. Now, the projects was dilapidated, crime infested, but that was created. And what happened with that? So funding was supposed to be sent to turn all these projects from Hope 6 to mixed unit apartments. Bill Clinton signed that when he came in office in 93. That's when Hope 6 was signed. Now, you know what Hope 6 did? It displaced so many gang members, so many people in the community. They end up tearing down projects all through the country. A lot of the projects was in horrible conditions. Funding had been sent to them projects, to Democratic Congress members and Democratic city governments to fix those projects. So they misappropriated the funds to fix the projects up, allowed them projects to go to hell. And so they sent Hope 6 money in 93 allegedly to turn the projects all across the country into mixed unit projects to basically uplift them. But that Hope 6 money did nothing but misplace black people in all those communities. The uptick of crime went to the roof. They moved GDs and BD neighborhoods, Vice Lords and Mickey Cobra neighborhoods. They did everything, so the violence went crazy because now you had separated gang members was forced to find housing in all the places where they had enemies at. And that crime went to the roof. Hope 6 started when they got to Chicago, and it's supposed to be flipped around. They must have got that wrong, brother. But that's called Hope 6. It's supposed to be Hope 6. Okay, so they must mess that up. We understand it, but it's Hope 6. It's not Hope 4, it's Hope 6. Okay, so drill music, have y'all heard of it? We call it kill music. It was invented out of these conditions, 2012, 2013. Drill music is called a dark music, kill music. If you look it up, it's dark, it's violence, it perpetuates violence. All this birthed out of the gangs being moved and misplaced, blacks being misplaced in all these communities. And that funding came from that Democratic president, supposed to went to help people, but it really harmed people. Because guess what? They kicked them out of homes, and most of them never was replaced. So we just want to say that. The last one is the father of civil rights. This is why we call him the father of civil rights, because he was one of our first Republicans, Frederick Douglass. So a lot of people in this country say they love Frederick Douglass. A lot of people, black people, love Frederick Douglass, speak about him every day and everywhere. But then they turn around and say they hate Republicans. Or they say they don't even know nothing about us being Republicans. So black people, to understand, this brother right here was one of our first, he was the first, one of the first recorded Republicans, and he was the first black person that was a nominee for the president when the Republican Party started. Why do we call him the father of civil rights? This is why. The first time a person was ever able or had the mission to get political empowerment in order to change our conditions, he was the first one started that through the history. Linking up with presidents, linking up with officials, not rallying up saying let's get guns and try to beat a system that we is 1 gun to 100 guns and all that crazy stuff. He say, listen, let's work within our system. Let's bargain with our population. And he bargained with Lincoln, helped Lincoln out with the Civil War, but helped black people out. See, it was both people can benefit from freeing the slaves in the rebellion states and allowing them to a war. It was a benefit in that. And Frederick Douglass was one of the people that gave the information and helped give advice to Lincoln in order to do that. He worked heavily with Lincoln and the Republican Party. They had 2 missions. His mission was our freedom, black people. And Abe's mission was to preserve the Union. But they was able to come together and both benefit from the Civil War. You understand that? So that's why we call him the father of civil rights. When you get down to King and what we doing right now, we still in civil rights. We still going to the government. That's why we say Trump was here. That's why we saying let's vet our politicians. And let's do that. So you got 2 schools of thoughts that's permeating through the black community. You got one school of thought say, stay away from the government, don't vote. Go on the grid, get out of here. Go back to Africa. Don't nobody want to go back to Africa, man. Africa ain't better than what we doing over here. I'm just being honest. Them people sometimes will cut your neck off over there if you say something. You ain't about to be over here talking like this, talking about the government in some of them countries. So people is backwards saying, go over there and it's freedom. Man, they'll cut your hand off, cut your tongue off if you remotely say anything. I'm going to say this. People get mad at me when I say this. The Panthers, the Black Panthers, they went over to the Chinese government and they spreaded communism in this country. People don't know that. And why I say that to say that you will be in this country talking about China, and they wouldn't even move to China. They wouldn't dare move to China. But they over here spreading information about communism, went to the Chinese government. They did this. Look it up. They went to the Chinese government while they was in an all-out war with communist countries over here. Look at the mentality of them. Went to the Chinese government, pledged their allegiance to the Chinese government on national TV. This the Black Panthers. Came back. If you know who Samuel Napier is, Samuel Napier was the Black Panthers editor. They wrapped him up and put 3 bullets in the back of his head. Samuel Napier never, ever had a gun. Why did they do that? Why do y'all think they did that? Because you were spreading communism in a country that we was in an all-out war with communism. And guess what? Black people was being drafted into that war at alarming numbers. So we was dying in that war against communism. The American people, black and white, dying in the war. And the nuts of them to come over in the country and spread, they could never go to China and do that. Never. So a lot of times people be talking about we allegiance with these countries. Do you know what them countries is doing? You're not about to talk about nothing about no president. You ain't spreading your opinion about no president, getting on no platform about no president. You ain't doing nothing. And not just in Asian countries, but in the black countries in Africa. So the 2 schools of thoughts is very important because you got Marcus Garvey, you got Malcolm, you got Eldridge Cleaver, you got a lot of these people that we call militants in this school of thought. And that school of thought told us to stay away from voting and go back to Africa. Give our tax money out. Don't participate in the system. Stay away from it. Go build a barn, build a garden, and get off the grid. That don't work for us at all, period. So the father, we call him the father of civil rights because he was one of our first leaders that understood that we had, as black people in this country, as a small percentage, we had to work within this government in order to get provisions to benefit us, and we had to do it intellectually. So that's why we call him the father of civil rights.
And we have to give credit where credit is due in this nation. We all remember the Civil War. You know, the North, under Republican President Abraham Lincoln, fought a war. This was the bloodiest, had the most fatalities in the bloodiest war in American history. Gettysburg, thousands of people died in just a few days. Brothers fighting against brothers, relatives fighting against relatives, the whole country in a turmoil. You had black brave soldiers who fought for the Union. You had white brave soldiers who were poor. And they also, many of them were fighting to end slavery, white soldiers as well as black soldiers. You had a Republican president who appointed a general named General Sherman. And when they defeated the South and began to gain land in the South, General Sherman, who again was appointed by Republican President Abraham Lincoln, he passed what they called Field Order 15. We're familiar with the 40 acres and a mule. We want our 40 acres and a mule. It was General Sherman who allocated 40 acres for the freed blacks along the eastern seacoast. But what happened? Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, then the vice president, who was actually a Democrat, he switched to get on the Republican ticket. But he was from the South, North Carolina originally, and he was really a Democrat. Soon as Lincoln was assassinated, he revoked that land, those 40 acres that Republican president and that Republican general had allocated to us. And you had some blacks that fought. They said, no, we're not just leaving. This is our land. But they could not stand up against the might of the federal troops that were sicked on them, so to speak, by this president, Andrew Johnson, who was a Southerner and a Republican at heart. So we have to give credit where it's due. You know, you've had many white people who sacrificed for us or along with us. And the Democrats don't like that. The Democrats pretend to be your friend, but they're not your friends. You are destroying this country morally, economically, in every other kind of way. And it's no secret, it's not rocket science to know what the people need, specifically black people. Skilled trade schools, contracts, startup money, education, quality education. And we're not getting any of that under the Democrats, and they're in control of all of it. As I just mentioned earlier, they are in control of the contracts in our cities. They are in control of the public school systems that we send most of our children to. And they're coming out degenerates. I've seen high school graduates right here in the city of Detroit, got their diploma, walked across the aisle to get their diploma, and reading at a 4th or 5th or 6th grade level, and can't even write cursive. If you send them to the store and you write a note, this is what, you get this for me. They come back, could you print this out? I can't read cursive. This is all under the Democrats. But again, we have to give credit where it's due. You have people, black, white, and white, who fought and died in the bloodiest war that this country ever had, the Civil War, so that we would have, so at least the institution of slavery would be toppled. And it was the Democrats, like Brother Ramon said. Guess who the Democrats' military wing was? The Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party military wing was the Ku Klux Klan. Look it up.
I want to say this real quick, and because this is the last slide, I just want to say this. This is not a history class. It's a lot of history that I don't know nothing about. History is such a large volume. So a person can come up, if it's not related to politics, then we don't talk about it. Because like I say, history is so wide, we can go on and on and on and on and on and on all day. Bills and laws passed. They being passed every day. Can't keep up with them. Local ordinances, state, county ordinances, state legislature and national. Every day they passing them. It's hard to keep up with them. But what we can keep up with is the dynamics of the people who make those laws and pass those laws. So I just wanted to state this because we had a brother come up here and he wanted to go on history, and we had to let him know we talked about history only when it relates to political moments throughout our history. If you go through it, everything we talked about, it was history, but it was related to a political moment. So I just wanted to state this: we're not teaching history. We're teaching the dynamics of politics and how politics work and how it can benefit our community.
Amen. Because context matters. So this is going to. I know I said we would go into questions and answers, but we're out of time, unfortunately. But that gives us an opportunity to come back next Friday, because it'll be our last segment of this space for Discourse. So we would love to see you back here next Friday. Please bring someone else with you, a family member or a friend, somebody who doesn't even agree but they haven't voted yet. It might be an opportunity for breakthrough. So we would hope that you would invite someone out, and if you're at the very least, shoot them a link that they could connect with us online, okay? And with that, there are going to be refreshments and something for you to eat back there. We're going to spend some time together, maybe get to know each other a little bit better. And perhaps if there's any questions that you have that you may be able to ask them in a time of fellowship. And then we're going to disperse sometime around 8 p.m., okay? Thank you so much. And we're going to transition over to fellowship and community. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next Friday.